This is the weekend edition of Fear and Greed Business News, Australia's best business podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, our weekend show is very, very, very different to the weekday shows. It is all about the two of us each nominating what we think is the biggest story of the week, the biggest business story, that is, the most remarkable story, a sleeper story, which is a category I always struggle with, trying to find a story that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, or in some cases going to be a bigger story further down the track, and we're identifying it now. And then our favourite business story. And every week, because this is a competition and we are kind of battling here, we are joined by a judge to pick a winner, and our regular judge Adam Lang is taking a few days off, a well-earned break, so we have a special guest in the chair this morning, still part of the broader Fear and Greed family. Canna Campbell is a financial planner and the founder of financial literacy platform Sugar Mama TV, and most importantly for this, my co-host on our other podcast, How Do They Afford That? Canna, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
I'm excited. I'm hopeful.
Look how excited he is, Kenna. He's beaming.
Well, I hate to throw you under the bus, but gentlemen, I'm in a bad mood. So I have high expectations here. I want to be inspired. I want to be challenged. I want to be stimulated, and I want to laugh. I need some comic relief in my life this morning, so the pressure is on.
Dear.
Okay, so what we've learned here is we normally have Adam Lang's very kind of convoluted criteria for judging stories.
Spreadsheets.
And it's like the impact on the economy, it's kind of the timeliness, it's all of this kind of personal bias. Instead, we've just had Canna Campbell's criteria just rattled off there. You want to be inspired, challenged.
I did say stimulate. I don't know what I was thinking with that word, but I just want to be I want my opinion challenge. I want to learn something new here.
Okay.
I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed.
But when I say laugh, though, Michael, I mean laugh with you, not at you.
So I would just like to jump in here, you two pals. You clearly know each other very well, and I've been thrown under the bus here. What's the story, Michael?
Let's just, you know what? Let's get straight into the biggest story, Sean. Let's just let the stories speak for themselves. So let's get into it. The biggest story, and you can go first.
Well, fortunately, Canna is an intellect, very, very smart about how the world operates, particularly around that financial planning area. So obviously she's going to agree that it has to be the economy. The economic growth rate for the December quarter came in, and according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, it was 0.2%. Soggy seems to be the favoured word to describe growth. Soggy.
It's a terrible word.
I mean, when your sayo falls into your tea, it becomes soggy. Otherwise, I don't think I've ever used that word except for economic growth. Soggy. So now we have had 3 soggy quarters of growth, 0.5% growth in the June quarter, 0.3% September quarter, now 0.2% for the December quarter. For 2023, the economy grew by a soggy 1.5%. Now, remember, the population grew by 2.4%. Therefore, we've actually gone backwards on a per capita basis. We're in a per capita recession. The average economic growth rate over the decades is somewhere between 2.5% and 3%. So 1.5% definitely is soggy. That's the numbers. In terms of the different sectors, households are finding it tough. We know that because for months we've been paying plenty more for petrol, for electricity, for groceries, the necessities of life. According to the Bureau, we've cut back on things like cafes and restaurants, clothing, footwear, cigarettes, cars. The good news is that businesses are still investing and governments are still spending money, maybe a little bit too much. We also have these tax cuts coming down the line on July 1. Throw that into the fear and greed mix master, which we love doing. The growth figures this week suggest that maybe, just maybe, interest rate cuts are a little closer than we thought. Not at the very end of the year, maybe just a little earlier than that. A very big story this week. I've finished, but Kenna, I love that look on your face when I said interest rate cuts might be sooner, and Michael's face just became despondent. Yeah. It's even better.
It's like, oh God, you've just really you have targeted Kenna very well with that. The biggest story this week, that was a big story, but the biggest story actually combines international politics and the Australian economy, right? I'm talking about the ASEAN meeting that took place in Melbourne this week. Sean, I will turn your microphone off if you yawn again. And I'm sure that was entirely involuntary. This is it happened in Melbourne, right? It's a big global political summit, right? And it happened right here in Australia. Sean, this is something that would probably take a few people by surprise in terms of the importance of this summit.
Yes.
So our second biggest trading partner in the world isn't the US or the European Union or Japan or India. It's the ASEAN members. So this is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, including countries like Indonesia and Malaysia. I just find that absolutely incredible that this trading bloc here is actually bigger in terms of the trade that we do with it and they do with us is bigger than the US, the EU, Japan, India, all of those giants that you would expect to be there. $178 billion of two-way trade in 2022. So for those leaders to be in Melbourne for a meeting to mark 50 years of Australia being an external partner, that is really something. And I think we should be celebrating that and awarding it the biggest story of the week. But some of the big developments and announcements that came out of this throughout the week included things like a $2 billion finance facility to help fund green energy and infrastructure investment in Southeast Asia. So really looking to the future there. An electricity deal with Singapore, new partnerships with Malaysia, hundreds of millions of dollars for maritime security and protection. And some of Australia's top corporate executives have agreed to act as business champions for individual countries in the region. It's got economic importance. You can tick that box. I don't know if you've got a little kind of tick box sheet, Canna, that you're doing, but if you're looking for things to tick.
I think there was a cross. I just saw her right, Michael.
It wasn't a cross. Sean, you're really throwing me. It was a tick. I saw it. There was an economic importance tick. There's a political importance tick. There's a little tick next to that one. Diplomatic and global security importance as well. Tick that. That's a big tick for that one. And it happened here in Australia. Biggest story of the week by far. Canna, are you with me?
No, sorry. I'm going back to bed.
What the heck?
Yeah.
Oh, you have made my day, my week.
I felt like pressing fast forward on you, to be honest.
This is savage today. I was expecting more. Sean should lose points for the use of the term soggy. That is just a word that should never be used.
Well, that might be what gets Sean over the line here, because I don't use the term soggy, but I use the term wet sock. So I feel like there's a common alignment between Sean and I right now. And because I'm in a bad mood, I'm tired, I'm cranky. And, I felt like I went through a wave of emotions hearing Sean's story. And, we got the facts, we got the figures, we got, cold, hard reality. I feel informed, I feel educated. And then we had the glimmer of hope for the people, the listeners, with the hope of an interest rate cut any day now.
Canna, we've got to get to know each other better. Oh.
I should have known it was a bad sign when I saw you bring a pillow into the studio that I was being set up today for this. And it feels as though Sean and Canna may have had some kind of secret pact, a little alliance going on.
No. We can genuinely say we haven't spoken before this, but we are so in sync about what's important in the world, Michael. It just happens.
Yeah. Don't be jealous.
This is ridiculous. We're going into most remarkable. I'll go first on this one. The most remarkable story, right? Wake up, Canna. It's going to be Donald Trump taking on Joe Biden to be president of the United States. It is remarkable because it is now inevitable. This week, 15 states and 1 territory voted in their primaries on Super Tuesday, and Trump won all but one of them over his opponent, Nikki Haley. Haley then dropped out of the race, but she did so, importantly, without endorsing her rival. Instead, saying that he had to earn the vote of her supporters. She had actually previously committed to, if she did have to drop out, if she did end up being beaten, she would endorse him. And then she backflipped on that and said, no, if you want my support or the support of my voters, you're going to need to earn it, which I think, that's very interesting. Don't you, Canna? Okay. No, don't answer that. Don't answer that question. On the Democrat side, obviously Joe Biden had a pretty easy run all the way through this, but that ends now because the 8 months or so until the election are going to be grueling. And 81-year-old Biden has to campaign while leading the country. So prepare for 8 months of drama, 8 months of theatre. And just to give you a little taste of what we're in for, consider Donald Trump's words this week, where he described the US, his own country, as being known as a joke and said it's a third world country because of its migration policy, because of its elections, i.e. one of the elections that he is now contesting. Polls show it's pretty close between the two of them. So who knows actually what's going to happen. One thing that polls did show, according to the BBC, is that Americans they didn't want to have the same choice that they had 4 years ago. So considering that, it's remarkable that we're now preparing for a repeat of what we had 4 years ago, that it is going to be Biden v. Trump all over again. And the reason it's in this week, the reason I'm saying it this week, because we've been heading towards this point, but this week sealed the deal. It is now inevitable. It is going to be Biden taking on Trump. Let the games begin. Sean.
Okay. So I suppose if I lived in the US, Southern Illinois, Lebanon, Illinois, it's a little town, and voted, maybe I'd be interested in that, really. I thought maybe that'd be remarkable. I'm not sure. What about the people here, Michael? What about the Aussies? This is the most remarkable story because it affects Australian investors and pretty much anyone with a super fund, i.e. everyone.
Oh no, Sean, you have clearly listened to our episodes of How Do They Afford That, where I think one was even called Superannuation is Sexy.
Little bit of homework, that's all you need.
I like the way you think, Sean. I am impressed.
I'm just going home.
I might have peaked. Maybe you should just stop talking now.
Yeah, just leave it at that. You can win with your intro, but go, give us some detail.
Look, it's a rise and rise of the banks. The Commonwealth Bank's share price hit an all-time high this week. Westpac's shares hit their highest level since 2015. National Bank shares reached their highest level since the global financial crisis. It is actually quite remarkable. There's a bunch of moving parts in this, so I'm not sure they actually give us an answer to why the bank shares are doing so well. And of course, we're not an investing podcast. Always seek out professional advice when you are investing. But let me go through some of the stuff. Falling interest rates, which we're likely to see later this year, are supposed to be bad for banks. Isn't a negative. And profit margins, net interest margins, the difference between what a bank pays out on a deposit and receives on a loan, well, they're shrinking. That should be bad for banks too. Also, most bank analysts, these people who are paid to judge what the banks are going to do, are saying the big four are overpriced. Commonwealth Bank is looking particularly expensive. That's another negative. But given the banks are providing a dividend yield of 4% plus, they remain very attractive to many retail investors. There are also gorillas in the market. 4 of the top 6 stocks on the ASX are the banks. So anyone who is a passive investor or invests in an index fund that mirrors the ASX, they have to buy them. Also, we're just not seeing the bad debts that we normally would at this point in the economic cycle, and that makes the big four more attractive than they would normally be relative to the point we are in the economic cycle. Now, since their lows in late October, early November, Commonwealth Bank and NAB are up 23%, ANZ is up 19%, Westpac's up nearly 30%. It has been a truly remarkable rise for the banks, highlighted by these peaks this week, and that's been a truly remarkable return for superannuants, for investors, anyone who has money in the banks, and a big part of the reason why the market's up 14% since that late October, early November bottom. Canna.
Before you jump in, can I just quickly point out that the US election is going to impact financial markets? I think I forgot to mention that. And
You're just desperately trying to get in there.
just listening to Sean, I'm like, oh, no. Oh.
I thought I'd feel sorry for you, Michael.
You don't, do you?
But I don't.
No, look at that.
Sean's talking my language. As someone who is passionate about financial freedom and investing and investing in industrial shares and that very sexy term dividend and passive income
please
and
hold back
4% yield. I mean, you had me at superannuation.
Now I have a question for Kenna. So in the midst of this afternoon or later today, my son is playing in the grand final of his school cricket. He's very exciting. He's in the seniors and whatnot. He's just texted me and said, "Hey, Dad, can I have $15 because I need a new bat grip for my bat?" Now, when I get these, when I listen to How Do They Afford That, so much of it is about discipline, about managing your money. That's kind of the overriding theme. Now, $15, it's not much. I get that, but that's not the point. The actual amount isn't the point. Do I just give him the $15? It's grand final day, off we go? Or, do I say, well, actually, you can probably do without a new bat grip? It is actually the last game. I'm sure you'll manage. I won't say that you won't score runs. I'm sure you'll score a lot of runs today, Darcy. Good luck. What do I do, Canna?
Well, I think he's got to work for it. He's got to earn it.
Oh.
It's the world that we live in. We want things all the time, but we have to earn the money first, and then we can go and buy it. However, I do understand there's a bit of a time restraint here. So perhaps you're going to have to negotiate a quick deal with him where you go and buy it for him, but he's got to pay it back through additional chores, or he's going to have to basically pay interest perhaps to you. You can.
Ooh. I like it. Or do what all good parents do, bribe him and say every run you get 50 cents. And therefore, if you get 30 runs, you get the $15.
You could do that as well.
I love that you were buttering Canna up now with talking kind of financial advice and financial discipline and all of this. As if
hang on, Michael.
Yeah,
maybe you should take a leaf out of Sean's book, and perhaps I wouldn't need to be as mean and cruel to you on How Do They Afford That.
I came into this going, I have got this one. I know what Canna likes. We do this podcast. We've been doing it for a couple of years. I know all of the topics. And then I just ignored all of that and went for the stuff I'm interested in. What an idiot. What an absolute idiot. Anyway, 2-0. We are heading into a break. We'll come back on the other side and find a sleeper story. I need to do some work to change my topics.
Otherwise, I will be going back to sleep.
Cheers. All right, Sean, we're looking for a sleeper story. And of course, we have a guest judge with us today, Canna Campbell, my co-host on How Do They Afford That, our podcast. It's all about personal finance and things. And so really, there's a bit of a personal finance flavour to our stories today. Well, not to mine. Clearly, I seem to miss my own memo on that one. But we're looking for a sleeper story. So maybe a story that's not getting the attention that it deserves or is going to be a bigger story further down the track. What have you got for us?
Well, mine's about faster internet speeds. They might be on the way. The NBN Co, the wholesaler of the National Fibre Optic Network, has asked internet providers if they can handle faster downloads. It's a sleeper because, number one, we didn't hear a lot about the story this week, though it may change all our lives. Number two, it demonstrates that other technologies, 5G, low Earth orbiting satellites, are putting some serious competition into the marketplace. Telcos are looking at charging less. That's really good for consumers. To the detail, the NBN's proposing quicker connections for people on its highest speed plans, and the government corporation says it won't increase wholesale prices charged to retailers, wholesale as opposed to retail. So it's not going to charge the TPGs and the Telstras, etc. of the world anymore. It suggested lifting plans of 100 megabits per second to 500 megabits per second, 250 to 750. The NBN says it wants to meet unprecedented usage of high-definition streaming and remote work. It would apply to about 9 million broadband customers. Now, the average household nowadays consumes about 443 gigabytes a month across 22 devices. Quite phenomenal. Why would the NBN be doing this? That's kind of the question that hasn't come out, which makes it a real sleeper. Maybe it's out of the goodness of its heart. Don't think so. There's more competition in the marketplace, so it has to do it. 5G speeds in households are currently faster than most NBN plans being taken up by consumers. There are also about 3,000 low Earth orbit satellites out there, including SpaceX Starlink satellites. Many of those are providing the infrastructure for telcos. Suddenly, we're seeing all this competition in the telco sector, a sector which for decades and decades and decades was dominated by Telstra. We're seeing competition in the telco sector, and we consumers should be the winner in coming years. Great sleeper story for mine, Michael. I should be adding in about savings and that $15 that I could save, that I could spend on Darcy's cricket bat handle and all that stuff. But I won't.
Feels like you just did, kind of, just a little bit. But anyway, and also, Sean, it's worth mentioning that we did a little video on this story because it was a good story, and we put it up on TikTok. And Canna, I know you're big on TikTok as well. But I mean, goodness me, this one has been seen tens of thousands of times. This video, and it has stirred up quite a debate amongst TikTok users over kind of whether the costs will be passed on by providers. And there is the general consensus, I can say, after surveying many TikTok users, is no one's getting anything for free and everyone's going to have to pay a lot more. So anyway, that's just my little bit to add in.
Can I just jump in here before you give your part? I need some advice on this. Why is it that when we put up TikTok videos, Michael's do so much better than mine?
That's a good question. I wasn't actually aware that, one was performing differently because I enjoy both equally.
I think the social media world is ageist. That's my theory.
See, you're very good. I say I love it. You get the dog involved as well, and you're talking and walking. Let me go and do a bit of an analysis, a bit of a deep dive into your TikTok account, and I'll come back to you with some feedback.
So join us. So follow us on TikTok, Fear and Greed Podcast, and same on Instagram as well, and join the debate. Who does better videos, me or Sean? Not that it's competitive. I mean, clearly we are competitive everywhere, Sean. I'm starting to realise this. I didn't think that was a competition, but if it was, I am winning. Okay, my sleeper story. I've got a good one. This is a cracker. I think, Canna, that the corporate watchdog in Australia needs more public praise for what they have achieved lately. This is a bit of a sleeper, and it shouldn't be. We should be talking about this because it's awareness as well.
Nice.
This week, we learned that ASIC has shut down nearly 3,500 investment scam websites in just 8 months. That's about 438 dodgy websites every month, more than 100 every week, double digits every day. So they are working hard to shut these things down and to protect people, because it came with a warning from ASIC chair Joe Longo that scammers are taking advantage of people desperate just to make some extra money in the cost of living crisis. And I think that's really, really low. And I think it's fantastic that they are calling this out and they are working hard. ASIC is working hard to protect consumers, not just in scams, broader kind of market integrity issues. Things like greenwashing as well and insurance failures. In just 6 months, they secured almost $60 million in civil penalties and 9 criminal convictions. Well done, ASIC. But just quickly back to the scams, because I suspect that's what's actually going to maybe get me over the line here. There's another sleeper story element to this as well, and that is just how sophisticated a lot of these scams are becoming, using kind of deep fake images and things like of celebrities like Chris Hemsworth and David Koch to really target people and to prey on them. And as AI kind of gets better and better and so accessible and easy for people to use, just wait to see how believable some of these scams are going to get. Put it all together. And I think this is a real sleeper story. And the awareness, the additional awareness that we are giving to this through this category and through a win in this category is vital. Canna.
Oh, I liked Sean's story. It's a great feel-good story because, the listener is going to hopefully come out ahead with better value, faster internet speed, which is going to add efficiency to our life. And of course, as listeners, we're going to hopefully save some money. But I actually don't feel like I should be actually awarding this to Michael, but more like awarding this to ASIC.
That's fair call. Fair call.
Okay. You are clearly biased against me.
Sean Aylmer 2, ASIC 1, Michael Thompson 0.
I feel like rewarding ASIC here because I didn't know how hard they were working and how many people they've shut down. But I have to then, of course, I don't want to, Sean, but I have to then bring it back to Michael because he's making us aware of what the great work ASIC are doing. So begrudgingly, this one goes to Michael.
The amount that hurt you to award that to me suggests that there is a clear amount of bias here. All right, let's move on to the favourite story. It is 2-1. Sean, I'm hoping I can get a draw here.
Go for it.
Favourite story. My favourite story this week is one that shows our love affair with online shopping has not passed. In fact, it is picking up pace because online giant Amazon has pushed through the $3 billion sales barrier in Australia. And to be fair, a big chunk of that is its subscription and streaming service, Amazon Prime, but the retail part just grows and grows and grows because the group is now estimated to account for 10% of all money spent on online shopping in Australia. Its sales in Australia have almost doubled in the past few years. It is taking on everyone, from the old guard in Woolies and Coles and Kmart through to the online players like Kogan.com and also eBay. And Amazon's own online store grew its revenue by 21% in 2023, while third-party seller revenue increased by 79%. And Canna, I know that would be something that would appeal to you because this is often a side hustle for people, that they are using Amazon essentially for kind of drop shipping and to kind of sell things on the side. And so to see that growing suggests that these are often kind of ordinary people running a second kind of small business and making a little bit of extra cash. And really that is what this is all about. It's a bit of, sorry, I'm really kind of laying it on a bit thick there. It is a bittersweet favourite story though, because while it is amazing to see this boom in e-commerce, a lot of it is coming at the expense of local online retail. But just for the sheer size, the growth, and for the next day shipping, which we all love, it is my favourite story of the week, and especially for the impact on side hustle culture in Australia.
Oh, you just added that last bit in the end. I can tell the side hustle culture.
Yeah, it was a bit of an ad lib.
Think about this category, Canna. It can be anything. And Michael, I reckon that's one of the most boring favourite stories you have ever come up with, because you are very good at coming up with the quirky favourite story. And I think you're trying to play the judge too much. My story, on the other hand, mine's a love story.
Ooh.
I know what you have chosen here, and this is a good story. It's got nothing to do with business, though, Canna. Keep that in mind.
All right, back in your box. So I want to hear
you.
Sean's story.
Thank you. One of the world's most iconic photos of a sailor kissing a woman in New York's Times Square on VJ Day at the end of World War II was this week caught up in a fight over consent. Now, I love the story because it gives me the history of the photo, which appeared in Life magazine. Thankfully, common sense prevailed. Hannah, I'm sure you know the photo, the sailor holding the stranger who's leaning backwards and they're kissing. You know the one?
Very romantic.
Yeah, one of the world's best-known snaps. The photo was taken on August 14, 1945, known as VJ Day, the day Japan surrendered to the United States, as people spilled into the New York City streets from restaurants, bars and movie theatres celebrating the news. A gentleman called George Mendonça spotted Greta Friedman, spun her around and planted on a kiss. The two had never met. Now, fast forward to 2024, the US Veteran Affairs requested the photo's removal from all its health facilities because it depicts a non-consensual act and is inconsistent with the department's sexual harassment policy. Eventually, the boss of Veteran Affairs in the US stepped in and said the photo wasn't banned. Now, I don't want to spoil the story or anything because it's just beautiful as it is, but years later, Ms. Friedman says she wasn't aware of the photo until the 1960s, and in a BBC interview said, it wasn't much of a kiss. It was just somebody celebrating. It wasn't a romantic event. I don't want to end this story on a downer. There's a woman in the background of the photo. Her name is Rita Petri. Ms. Petri and Mr. Mendoza were on a date that day. And notwithstanding the kiss, notwithstanding that he took off and kissed someone else, the two went on to marry and live happily together for 70 years. Ms. Friedman died in 2016, Mr. Mendoza in 2019. They were both well into their 90s. What a beautiful story.
Oh, Canna, I don't know whether this is even allowed. There's
some dirty play going on here. And I don't know whether to reward it.
Totally. No, absolutely.
No. Remember, this is a business podcast. Just putting that out there.
Well, if I was on a date with a guy and he went and kissed some stranger in the street, I would kick him to the curb. So I'm sorry, Sean, but
it's a moral victory for me, even if the point goes to Michael.
I don't want to do a tie because I feel like a tie is just a little bit
I'm with you.
Soggy.
Well, it's not really a tie. It's two points for Sean, one to me and one to ASIC. So I think Sean still won overall.
Well, all right. I'm happy with that outcome. I feel like I've done my job. You know, it's fair, it's equitable. I do feel like I've had a lot of fun listening to you bicker it out.
Yeah.
I want Canna back more regularly.
Yeah. You know, I think ASIC wants Canna back more regularly. It's very rare for a regulator to get a point. It's very rare for any third party to get a point, let alone a regulator. Thank you very much, Canna.
Thank you. I am going to officially share with you, I'm no longer in a bad mood. So thank you, gentlemen.
We've done it. That is a victory. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Canna. That was fantastic.
And make sure you're following the podcast, and please join us online on TikTok and Instagram, as we mentioned before, and we're also on LinkedIn and X and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed Business News. Have a great weekend.